How long do you think it would take you to go through this whole mimer in one sitting?
Okay, we're gonna continue.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're starting here with the question that we had before, which is why is the cities of refuge this critical mitzvah where the whole concept of Mashiach from the Torah as an aspect of the mitzvah, that was chosen. And then we said, why are we going to need any cities of refuge in the future, let alone 3 more, right? When Mashiach comes, we're going to add 3 more cities of refuge. We said we don't even understand why there should be a need for any, because the Ruach HaTuma Avi Min Haaretz, Hashem is going to remove the spirit of impurity from the world in the future. So he actually answered it, and we said, actually, he's not going to remove the spirit of impurity entirely from the world. He's not going to remove that spirit of impurity. That's going to happen only when? In Tchias HaMesim. But in the days of Mashiach, which is essentially the period that we're talking about, because the whole idea of Torah Hadasha Me'iti Teitzei, where we're going to have to figure out if the shechita of the Leviathan is kosher or not, that's obviously still dealing with a concept where there's going to still be mitzvahs. And when Tchias HaMesim happens, it says mitzvahs batelos. Mitzvahs won't even be happening anymore in the normal sense. So the fact that we're still dealing with a segment of time where there's still mitzvahs, we know it's talking about the Yemos HaMashiach. And the whole concept of Torah Hadasha that's spoken about there is still in the realm of Yemos HaMashiach, which means there still will be evil in the world. Just what? The refinement of good and evil will have taken place. So therefore, there will be a separation of good and evil, but there still will be evil in the world. And therefore, this evil, so we answered the question, why are there going to be a need for cities of refuge? Because there's still a possibility of evil in the world. Just like we said in Gan Eden, before everything went awry, right? There was a snake over there. It was Gan Eden. Everything was pretty nice, but there was a potential for evil in the world. So you're still going to need cities of refuge. Why do you need 3 more? So he says because the refuge is basically, we said, Torah, right? We said the difference between, we said that the cities of refuge are essentially a metaphor for Torah, if you recall, because the idea of a city is the notion of a bunch of letters, and letters get together. You get houses. When you get a bunch of houses together, you get a city. The whole Torah was basically called this. And of course, why is it called refuge? Because when you climb into the Torah, it's a refuge from Yetzer Hara. But the type of Torah that we had in the time of exile, which we said was the type of Torah which was more or less there to refine the world. I'm putting a whole bunch of things together that we already learned, right? We said there's 2 types of Torah which is directed to doing the refinement, and there's like the sort of real Penimius Torah, which is a Torah which is connected with things that are beyond creation and beyond refining of the world. The Torah that we have, which represented by the 6 cities of refuge, this is a Torah which will not negate the possibility of that evil spreading itself back into the world. And therefore, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a new sug, a new dimension of the cities of refuge, which is another way of saying a new dimension of Torah, which will be brought into existence, which will be refuge us on another level. And the refuge will be to stop even the potentiality of evil from expressing itself, right? Those 6 cities of refuge can sort of save you, but they can't save you from the potential of evil coming in. The new cities, which is the symbol of Mashiach's coming, represents a new level of Torah. Cities of refuge equal Torah. It's a new dimension of Torah, and its function will be to basically ensure that we make it to the level of Tchias HaMesim, right? That the world will actually not fall again. Wow. So let's take it from inside, and we're going from page 188. You guys all have that right there? We're going to take it from the 3rd paragraph right in the middle of the 1st column. 188. You got it? Okay. So, Yesh Lomar, right? We want to say, Sha'arim Miklat Shabizman Hazeh, Sheish Arim, the cities of refuge that we have at this time, which are the 6 cities, we're living in one of them. Hem keneged shisha sidrei Mishnah kolel peirusham b'Gemara. It actually all kind of goes very well. What did we say before? That the whole of Nigla is sort of wrapped up in this idea of the number 6. That's what the 6 cities of refuge were referring to. It's referring to Nigla because it's basically 6 orders of the Mishnah. And the 6 orders of the Mishnah, of course, contains all the explanation of the 6 orders of the Mishnah, which is the Gemara and the poskim and everything that comes out in halacha. But that's all related to a aspect of Torah which is focused on refining the world. Shebehem, in those 6 orders of Mishnah, Nizbaru kol prati adinim. That's where it's explained all the details of the laws of Iser and Heter, Tuma and Tara, Chiyuv and Pater, right? Pure, impure, like guilty, innocent. Sha'al yadam nase bira olam. Through all these laws, basically deciding what's kosher or not kosher. That's how you refine the world. You say yes, you say no. Whereas the Ari Miklachis, Vasfu, Biyamosa Mashiach, these new cities of refuge, which will be added in the future, there are Shalosh Arim, there are 3 cities, and they're connected. Hosafa v'chidish b'chlalus Torah. They represent an upgrade, if you were, in the Torah. Uraisa Tlisoi, right, which the Torah itself is called a 3-part Torah. Shalosh Arim, these 3 extra cities will come his galus to pnimis Torah, and this is essentially what the secrets of the Torah are. What's the level of Torah which is above the midos? We said it's the Chabad, right? That's why the pnimis Torah in the generations when it was revealed got called by the name Chabad, because essentially it's coming to tell you that this is the whole concept of the Chochmah, Bina, and Das is a realm which is beyond the concept of the world, right? The world is basically 6, or if you add Shabbos, 7, right? And this is basically our whole interaction with the Torah, is to refine these six aspects of creation. What happens when you start to jump into Chabad? You're not dealing with the 6 aspects of creation anymore. It's a Torah which is focused on something which is beyond creation. Look at footnote 111. He says in Ora Torah there, from the Tzemach Tzedek, he says, Shisha Ari Miklat, right, the 6 cities of refuge, Liyesh Lomer Al Derech Zeh Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. So this idea, right, these ideas, as profound as they really are already found in Chassidus. These 6 cities are the 6 Mishnah, orders of the Mishnah. Gimel Ari Miklat Yesh Lomer Al Derech Oraisa Tlisai. And these 3 extra cities is the concept of like the 3-part Torah. We know that there's like a higher Torah where the Torah was given in the 3rd month, to the 3rd Shep, right, to the 3rd born, the 3rd day, to the 3-part nation, 3-part Torah. It's called the Oraisa Tlisoi. Kishyachriv Hashem Gvuleinu Tzrich Losif Gimel Ari Miklat. And this is what's going to be added to the Torah when our boundary will be increased, and we have to add 3 extra cities. And this is the beginning, says the Tzemach Tzedek, of the revelation of what's called Taimei Torah Lasi Lava. The meaning, the real reasons for the Torah in the future. Why is the Pnimiyas Torah called the reasons for the Torah? Because the reasons that we have now are only like the sort of scratching the surface. In other words, we know we're not allowed to do this, we're not allowed to do that, but like, in other words, why can't you eat milk and meat together? Because it says in a verse, you can't have the kid in its mother's milk. It's not really like a good reason. It doesn't actually explain this bizarre situation where you can't have these 2 animals together. But if it's a tummy animal, yes, like, all these details. The simple reason, we know why, more or less, you can't do it, but it doesn't like satisfy. The reasons of the mitzvahs comes and teaches you basically chesed is milk and gevura is meat, and all of a sudden you're realizing that there's some kind of like you're dealing with a little metaphor over here of why certain energies can't be drawn together and when they can, and what's the mixture all about. So it like sort of satisfies your understanding of Torah to know the secret inner depths of the meanings, and not just sort of the external reasons that are sort of slapped on so that we can live our lives. So this is called the reasons of the mitzvahs. In fact, the Arizal has also a sefer called Taimei HaMitzvahs, and the Tzemach Tzedek has a sefer called Taimei HaMitzvahs, because they're all basically coming to explain the real reasons for the mitzvahs. Yumtak Yoser, bottom paragraph, we can sweeten this further. Sheshlosha arim sheizvasvu b'yemos HaMashiach hem ba'arei hakeni knizi v'kadmoni. We know that these cities that will be added in the future will be added to the 3 lands that we will inherit. Hopefully any day now, as the plains seem to be indicating we're going to conquer some new territory here soon. And these are the cities of Keni, Kenizi, Kadmoni, right? Which is essentially the lands of the Esav and the two children that came from Lot, Ammon and Moab, right? So in those areas, Ammon, Moab, and Edom, those are going to be called the Keni, Kenizi, Vikadmon that were promised to Avram Avinu. Oh, after we finish conquering the 6 or the 7 lands of Canaan. That this was a promise. Shenichras Avram Avinu bris aleim. There was a covenant actually made that we will ultimately inherit these lands. But dayin lo nichbashu, and we don't have them yet. We didn't conquer them yet. And it is upon this 3 lands where the Torah comes and tells us, right, that if you will increase your boundary, you'll have to add these 3 cities. So we know that our increased boundary will go on those lands. How lovely, we're learning about this same exact thing in the morning, right? So we know that the conquest of the 7 lands, spiritually speaking, which we learned today, is a constant mitzvah. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs to conquer the land. Even nowadays, we still have all the mitzvahs to do, and we know that we have to do it spiritually. What is your land of 7 midos? These are your midos. I mean, your land of Canaan, these are your midos, right? Your Canaani is Chesed, Chiti is Gevurah. Literally, there's 7 nations. Each one of them is like a wayward aspect of yourself, which is running amok and needs to be conquered and destroyed and taken into the hands of your godly soul. Shizoi klalus ha'avoda bizman hazeh. And this is essentially what we call the avoda of nowadays. In other words, before the redemption. In other words, our main work is our midos. The kibush eretz gimel umos, the whole idea of conquering these 3 other nations, Keni, Kenizi, Kadmoni, as they're called, in your soul, who in bira mochin, this is called refining the brain, Shia b'yemos Mashiach, and that's sort of an activity which is reserved for the new avoda of Yemos Mashiach. When we will have this new Torah, which is essentially bringing us to a new state of avoda. So what's the idea? Why are we only going to work on the avoda of the mochin in the future, whereas nowadays the whole avoda is the avoda of the midos? What's going on over there? But even the according to what we learned this morning, you really need to be a tzaddik even to work on the avoda of the midos, right? Because we said, why did Yoshua, we're in Parsha Shlach, might as well use all of our Hasidic resources here, right? We're only really able to conquer our Machshava Dibur Maisa, which is associated with just Yerecho, right? As we are learning the Maimon in the morning. So to spy out the whole land and conquer the midos, you have to be a tzaddik for that, right? So it's not about tzaddik beinoni, even a tzaddik, right, who's busy with his midos, and he can transform his midos, which is just say all of us for a second, but amech kulam tzaddikim, still you're only dealing with your midos. You don't even touch the mochin. Even the tzaddikim don't touch the mochin bizman hazeh. What's the reason for this? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, by refining your midos, doesn't it lead to refining your mochin?
What's the idea of it? And don't we have to use our mochin also to refine our midos? It's kind of a funny thing. Why is that the whole ikar of nowadays, the avoda, is only to work on our midos? We don't even work on our mochin. What does that even mean to work on the mochin, by the way? Mochin is chacham bin and das.
But refining the midos leads to refining of the...
It does, because once we conquer the 7 lands, we're going to go and conquer the other 3. But why are we like leaving our mind basically out of the operation until Mashiach comes? Yeah? It's also in our hands because we have to conquer those lands. And there's a Torah which is associated with the conquest of those lands as well. Right? We're going to have a Torah Hadasha, and we're going to be misasek in the Torah Hadasha, and that's how we're going to transform the mind. Meanwhile, we don't have that Torah, or I'm not going to say meanwhile, who knows exactly where we're holding here. It's a little bit of a gray area with the plains overhead. Any day we could have these lands, and we seemingly already have the Torah. But the idea is that why are we, so to speak, in the days of Galus, why are we only working to refine our midos and we don't even touch the mochi? That's really the question. Yeah.
So you have to conquer the emotional attributes before you can conquer the intellectual attributes.
That's essentially what we're saying. You have to first conquer the 7 and then the 3. But why? The idea is that, first of all, the mind that is, look at the Torah, right? The Torah is mind. And the truth of the matter is we have 2 levels of Torah. The Torah that we have in the time of Galus is a Torah which is about the world, right? Nigla is a Torah which is describing the world. When you open Nigla, it says what you can do, what you can't do. It's like it's a Torah about the practical application of how to act, right? And so therefore, this is basically the beginning of our work. You are using your mind, but the whole access to the mind is that the mind is there for the sake of refining yourself. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, whereas a person, let's say, for example, you have what's called, you can go into your engineering class, or you can go into your like pure math, abstract math, physics class. What's the difference? You're both using the numbers and the science. One is though, you're taking this information in order to know how to build a bridge. The other one, you're just basically abstract knowledge. It's not for the sake of fixing anything or building anything. You're just basically exploring the depths of the mind, how far as it can go. During the days where the world is still broken, there's no business basically just like living your life in a state of exploration about how far the mind could go. You need your mind to fix your life. So the whole Torah that we've been given, and that we weren't even allowed to touch the Pnimius Torah until very, very recently, because that's not your business. You need the Torah, the mind of the Torah is there for you to fix yourself. And that's called fixing your 7 midos. And therefore our whole business, even practically on the ground, was only to conquer these 7 nations. We don't have any business talking about Keni, Kenizi, Kadmoni until we conquer the 7 nations, because if you're basically busy running amok and you're broken, you're not going to get very far being a philosopher, right? And so you need to already have a stable ground, so for you then to go and take your mind and see if you can transform your mind into something entirely godly. And therefore you start to learn a Torah which has nothing to do with practicality. It has nothing to do with the world. You sit there and learn about Spheros and Elokus all day long because the world's already fixed. So this is the idea that we must first fix the midos, and then we gain this ability to now go into this new terrain.
So what's the point of learning
Nigla?
Kabbalah these days?
Well, because we're saying that as the days approach and approach and approach, remember this is like the pivotal year where the Rebbe said right after this, we finished the refinement process. So it seems like before the refinement is finished, you have to mainly learn Nigla. And he said, even when you're mainly learning Nigla, you have to learn a little Chassidus in order to inspire you to like sort of do it in a spiritual way. In other words, when you learn Nigla and you remove like the Chassidus and the divine ideas of that God is creating the world, and the Nosein HaTorah, like we say, right? The bracha doesn't say, Blessed Hashem Nasan HaTorah. But if we say, Blessed Hashem Nosein, who's giving the Torah, you have to remind yourself that it's the Torah of God after all. So while you're busy doing this work, you can't totally remove from your mind that you're doing a divine service. You need a little bit Kabbalah, even in the days of the Gullus. But in the days of the future, it's the opposite. You need like a little bit of Nigla, which we said you're going to anyway basically know automatically from knowing the Kabbalah, but that will be your main efforts.
Focusing on like working on the and like refining the animal soul, fixing it is more like bittul, which is all like kind of like forget about like we've done like the refinement, just now be bittul and like kind of tap into that completely.
Arguably, all of Chassidus is that, right? It's the Chabad of the Torah. It's the Torah Hadasha.
Notice that shift with like the Rebbe. Saying like,
When was that shift with the Rebbe?
I'm saying, I'm learning from it. It's all just like.
I'm saying, but you're learning Chassidus from the Rebbe before 1991.
Fine. I'm not saying the shift happened when he said the Sikha, but.
In my opinion, it's all of the Rebbe's Torah is basically like from a place of the Mochin, and in a certain sense, all of Chassidus, Bichlal.
The mind was when he was talking about, like the Midas and the garments, like so. At some point, like there's some Chassidus that does talk about.
It's talking about the midos and the garments. It's not. It's talking about essentially even in the Maimer that we're learning this morning. The whole point is that he gets to the conquest of the 3 extra lands at the end of that Maimer as well. I'm just saying, when you're talking about the really refining the midos, you're talking about halacha, and you're talking about how to determine whether you can do this or you can't do this. It's literally practical. It's like Torah Lamaisa. Nothing in Chassidus really is Torah Lamaisa. It's there to inflame your heart for God and basically be taking you into this mind transformation, as far as I understand. In any case, let's go into Os Yud Gimel. So Al Pi Zeh Yesh Levar Gam HaChidush Shebiyemos HaMashiach Teh Halacha K'Beis Shammai. Let's go back and revisit some of the things we've said, which, if you recall, we also had, besides our questions on the Ir Miklat, we had some questions on how the halacha is going to go like Beis Shammai in the future. Because if you recall, we said that when the halacha went like Beis Shammai a few times, it was considered very bad, right? It was considered that it was a day as difficult for the Jewish people as the day they made the Egel. Remember that? So why are we saying that that's a messianic thing? We also said in the days of the future, there's going to be no evil in the world. So therefore, why are we going to go like Beis Shammai and make so many more things prohibited? The Torah of Beis Shammai is that you can't do anything. Why are we going to need such a Torah in the future when everything is going to be good? So we're starting to understand. First of all, we already let the cat out of the bag. In the future, not everything is going to be good because we're talking about the days of Mashiach and not Tchias HaMesim. So we've already covered that problem, that there's going to be need for still prohibitions. We still don't know why there's going to be need for so many prohibitions. The whole Torah is going to turn into a prohibitive Torah.
You're saying because it's the days of Mashiach, not Tchias HaMesim?
The days of Mashiach, there's still evil in the world. And the idea of the Torah Hadasha is just to stop even the potentiality of that evil from coming out. Right? Whereas the 6 levels of Torah, which is called the Nigla, it doesn't stop the potentiality, it stops the actuality. In other words, if you run in to the Nigla, it will spare you from your Yetzer Hara. But apparently, if you learn the 3 new levels of Torah, Hadasha, it stops even the potentiality of the evil from coming out. Wow. So let's look at why the halacha is going to go like Beis Shammai in the future. Do we have time?
And that's before Tchias HaMesim?
We have time. That's before Tchias HaMesim. That's in the days of Mashiach.
And after Tchias HaMesim, it's just what? It's just total.
There's it says like the mitzvahs are batelos, and that's a different game. The hektik bir hapluktos the Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. First, let's preface this by understanding the arguments between Shammai and Hillel, or Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai osrim, Beis Hillel matirim. As we know, Shammai is prohibiting, Hillel is permitting. Shapluktos hi benogela ofen peulas haTorah bebira olam. This is a very, very crucial, fundamental understanding of these 2 giants that basically the whole Torah goes like them. So what they're really arguing about, whether it's usur or mutter, is the way to refine the world. In other words, the manner of the effect of Torah upon refining the world. This is their discussion. Let's see how. But things which are very obviously bad, l'kuli alma, habiru huba ofen shel dechia. Both Shammai and Hillel don't have any arguments about those things. The way to refine those things, refining again means like putting the bad on one side and the good on the other side, is if something is obviously bad through and through, nothing to talk about, everyone says, push it away. In other words, even Hillel is strict on such a thing. Smol doche, this is the approach of the left hand pushes away, which means you're going to paskin every time. It's tameh, or it's asur, or it's pasul. Fine. But things which are definitely and obviously good, in other words, there's no little schmutz to even find in there to think that it might be asur, in yada reshus, in other words, permissible apps like daily activities, it's kosher food, no worry about orla or lack of separating your trumas and mice, just mamash, straight away, good things. Everybody, kuliyama biruhu beofen shel kiruv. But even Shammai says mutter, which means come close to it, use it. Yamin mekareves, the right hand brings close, which means it's tahor, mutter, and kosher. You're going to paskin, it's pure, it's mutter, and it's kosher. Right? Meaning what? What's the usefulness of saying something is pure or kosher? Means that by using it, by eating it, by bringing it close to you for the sake of heaven. And by the way, all your deeds should be this for the sake of heaven. And all your ways you should know God. So you're basically living a holy life. So there will be in these objects a refinement and an elevation into holiness. So anything in the world which is not sort of stuck down and cloaked in some kind of negativity in some way or the other, even Shammai is 100% interested in saying yes, right? Because when you eat it, you turn it into godliness. You make it part of a Jewish Torah world, and it elevates the world. Where do they argue then? בדברים שיש ספק אם צריכים לדחוסם או שיכולים במילא צריכים לקרבם לעלוסם לקדושה. There is a middle gray area, which is when there's a suffix. Do I push this away? Or am I able, and if I'm able, therefore I must bring them and elevate them to Kedusha. Anything which is possible to be elevated, then jump on it. We're trying to elevate the world, right? So the only question is there a little gray area where I'm not able to touch it? Or is it totally clean, in which case I must elevate it and bring it up? And why would there be a gray area? Mishum she'ara eino nikar v'nira bepoel b'gilui, because the evil that's in it is hiding inside of it. It's a type of evil which is not clear and apparent in an obvious way. There's like a secret, maybe if you lose this the wrong way. In other words, on the surface of it, it looks fine. But if you look peering deep into it, you might come to a conclusion that, whoa, hold on a second, there's a problem. Right? Because the evil is not on the surface, but rather bekoach ubehelim bilvad. It's only in potential. It's hiding. And that is where every single argument of Shammai and Hillel resides. On that gray area, where it looks fine, and therefore I don't see any reason why not. But if you're kind of a little bit of a genius, like we said that Shammai was, and you can peer into the depths of this object or the depths of this case a little bit further than your average man, you might come to the realization that, hold a second, this could lead to something negative. And in that area where there's a difference between it's obvious good or not obvious good, this is where all the arguments of Shammai and Hillel reside. And this is also why we find the footnote 18, and we're going to call it right here, we have one more minute, we'll just finish footnote 18, that when we come to explain L'shitisayu, the Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, right? When it comes to the approach of each of them, we know that Beis Shammai azle basar koach and Beis Hillel azle basar poel, right? We know that every place, the most obvious example of this is Hanukkah, right? Where it says openly in the Gemara this concept that we know that, but you can learn this broadly across the whole Torah. Shammai always paskins according to the potential of a thing. Hillel paskins according to the actual thing, for the same reason we're saying. Shammai is looking to see if there's a potential evil, and he paskins in accordance with what is not seen, what's potential. Hillel paskins accordance with what can be seen and what's actual. So look at the Hanukkah menorah, right? We know, how do we paskin? Every night you add a candle. You start with one, and you add a candle. Who does that go like? Right, what is the word Hanukkah? Is an acronym for something. Ches, Neros, V'halacha, Kehillel. That's what Hanukkah stands for. Yeah. It's brought in the Shulchan Aruch. Right? So it's the idea is that, hold on a second, let me just explain. The idea is that, why is that called actual? Because Hillel is basically saying, what do I have in my hands? Don't talk to me about potential. What do I have in my hands? On day one, what do you got? One day, let's light a candle. On day two, what do I have actually? Don't talk about potential. 2 days, light 2 candles. What does Shammai say? Day one, what do I have? I've got all 8 days in front of me. He sees the potential, right? That's what he's paskening on. He says, what do I have here in potential? I've got 8 potential days. Let's light 8. See, so he paskins based on what is the potential of the matter. By the time he gets to the last day, potential, what he's got left? Only one. So you light 1 day, 1 candle the last day. And this is the same kind of thing we're saying here, because he's basically looking into the potential of what could come out from this thing. And that's how he lives his life. He lives his life based. So if something has potential evil in it, as we're going to soon see, as far as Shammai is concerned, that's the reality. And therefore it's usher. And therefore everything is usher, right? The whole Torah of Shammai is usher, because theoretically everything could be bad. And he sees that as his reality. And therefore he paskins, no. Hillel's like, you're crazy, man. We're going to leave this world like untouched. Is it good today? Do you have one in your hand? Eat it. I don't see you're going to trace this thing that can go in some kind of wild direction. Who cares? I've got 1 day. I'm going to count 1 day. So he paskins according to the potential, to the actual. And this is essentially every single Gemara. And it basically has to do with the effect of Torah on the world. What are we trying to do with this world? Elevate it? Yes. So Hillel's like, don't miss an opportunity to elevate. You're gonna pass up this apple because you think maybe you got it from some place you're not supposed to get it from. In the meantime, you left it unelevated, and the world is going to be remained basically bereft of kedusha. I'm going to take a bite out of it, make a bracha, eat it, and daven with the energy, and I've elevated the world. And we paskin like Hillel because we're trying to fix the world. Why suddenly in the days of Mashiach we're going to paskin like Shammai? Tomorrow. Here, pass it in.
Doesn't the view of the Shammai